Abby K, and you're watching Richard Metal Fan.
Hey, what's up, guys? Episode 278 of Richard Middlefan Interviews, calling from Zoom, and I'm here with the great Abby. How are you doing today, Abby?
I am wonderful. How are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's a great afternoon here in good old Georgia. How's it over where you're at?
It's pretty well. Last week it was all rainy, and this week it's all sunshine and getting to go swimming every night, so it's been good.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for my pool to open, and so I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to it. It's like hot over here in Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so awesome to have you here. So kind of like the format is, I want to talk about like your musical history and talk about like the singles that you've released from the last few years. So taking it back to young Abby K. So kind of growing up, what were the first bands that got you into metal that made you want to be a vocalist and slap at a bass?
So I tell this story all the time. I love it. So when I was like probably 5 years old, I have a bigger sister, 3 years older than me. Of course, at 5, I look up to her. I want to do everything like her. And she would say, "Hey dad, put this Taylor Swift song on my iPod." So of course I would follow in her footsteps. I want the Taylor Swift song too. I didn't really care about Taylor Swift. I was just copying my sister. And my dad would give us Taylor Swift, but he would also sneak in Detroit Rock City, Rock and Roll Party in the Streets, Billion Dollar Babies. And I would get the iPod back and I would listen to him because I thought, oh, my sister asked for all of these songs. This is what my sister is listening to. And my sister was smart enough to know I didn't ask for these old guys to be put on my iPod. So she would like make a playlist without them. I didn't get that memo, so I was listening to them. And so around 5 years old, I was unwillingly falling in love with rock and roll. And some of those bands were Kiss, Metallica, Alice Cooper, Iron Maiden.
Favorite band?
Um, yeah, my favorite band is Iron Maiden.
Me too.
Of all time. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Like, what's your favorite Iron Maiden album?
Power Slave.
Mine too.
Really?
Yeah, because I remember the first time I heard Iron Maiden, I was like 12, 13 years old. Like I
Mhm.
had my dad played me the Live After Death like concert video, which is
Yeah,
basically the same era that was on the Power Slave tour. And I first heard like Aces High, especially when they did that little Winston Churchill speech at the beginning and
yeah,
then going right into Aces High. I was like, whoa, what is this? And ever since then, they've pretty much been my favorite band. And I've seen them live like 4 times. They're one of those bands, like I feel like they put like bands that are like half their age or younger to shame live.
yeah. I agree. I agree
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah,
The
but how do you also
showmanship
feel
and
about like the whole like years in the 90s where they kind of went a little weird, but then it was like after when Bruce and Adrian rejoined, I feel like they kind of were back on track.
yeah, I honestly I don't know a lot about that period in time. Um, I here's the thing about being born in my generation. I'm only 21 years old. I
I
did
mean,
not
I'm only
come
30, so
from
I know
Okay,
a little
so
bit more.
so you probably get this too. Like, I didn't come from the generation that buys albums. I stream individual songs. I can't name every song on Power Slave. I can't name every song on any album. I don't listen to albums front to back. I listen to whatever songs jump out at me on multiple different albums. And same thing, like I and this is something I need to do better with, especially as somebody in the music industry. I don't know a lot about bands' history. I don't. I listen to their music and I love their music. I go to their shows, but I wish I knew a lot more about the history of the bands.
Yeah, but well, I also like their more recent albums, like especially Brave New World is definitely I feel like that should have been the album that came out after like Seventh Son. Especially love how they like songs like Blood Brothers, definitely one of my favorite songs, and
Yeah.
Nomad. I especially love how they have like orchestrations and stuff in there. I wish they
Yeah.
could do like a show like it with an orchestra, kind of like similar to like Metallica did something like that.
Hmm.
That play with like an
Yeah.
orchestra. I could see them fit because some of their songs have a lot with like an orchestra backing. It just sounds really just gives it like a more epic and kind of powerful feel behind it.
Yeah. It's very honestly, I feel like they've kind of gone in a like a symphonic metal direction.
Yeah, totally. Like so then tell me about like because I see like you have some basses. So what inspired you to like pick up the bass and do you know what remember like the first bass you bought?
Yes. So I was 12 years old and I literally went to my dad and said, "Are you ever going to take me to a concert?" I was a little bit of a sassy child. He was like, "Oh, okay, I'll take you to a concert." he took me to see Kiss, which I think is a lot of musicians' first concerts. And it's a great first concert, but it also sucks as a first concert because Kiss is top tier. You can't get better than Kiss. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what live music is. And then you go and see, I absolutely adore Joan Jett. I love Joan Jett. But somebody that's more toned down, just focused on the music rather than the show, I'm like, oh, okay. Um, but the moment I saw Kiss, I was like, okay, so this is what I'm gonna do. And I went home and picked up guitar the next day because we had a guitar in the house. I was 12 years old. I didn't really comprehend that Gene Simmons is playing a bass. I didn't really know what a bass was.
You're like, what
And
is
then
it?
I went to take a guitar lesson for the first time, and a band was coming in to rehearse. And they said, hey, do you play bass? And I said, what's a bass? And they handed me a bass. And it was kind of like one of those, like, kind of like a God moment. Like I knew exactly what I was doing. They said, just play this. And it was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. This is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. And tell me about some of like your first bands, like growing up, like starting out. Like, do you remember like the first band you actually like played with?
First band that I played with. The first one of like note was Nita Strauss. But before that, I played with like local bands. And I mean, I was only in middle school when I started playing in bands, so we played with a lot of other middle school bands. Um, but the first one of note was Jackie Vincent, Angel Vivaldi, and Nita Strauss.
Nice. Those are like big names to drop.
Yeah, I was 15.
Oh, wow. And then I know you also had have like now your solo stuff. So what inspired you to sort of like do like a solo kind of career versus like playing in like an actual band?
So I never intended on singing ever. Don't, I will never claim to be a singer. I will claim to be a bass player and a performer and an artist. I will never claim to be like the most amazing singer. But what was happening in these middle school bands is there were like four guys and me, and everyone would take turns singing, and I would never sing. But they were going through puberty and middle school, and we would have to like change the key of the songs every week, and I was tired of it. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, it's my turn. And then I started singing. And I think the reason why I chose a solo direction, I chose that at age 15. And that's because a lot of the people that were in the kid bands, the middle school and high school bands in my city, were really just doing it as a hobby and planned on going to college for engineering and chemistry and everything. And I had no intention of doing that. I knew that this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And so it was almost easier for me to do it alone and to hire. When I was 15, I literally had 40-year-old men playing in my band, which sounds really weird and really creepy,
Yeah.
but
Tell
they
me
were
about it.
professional musicians that knew how to get the job done. And that's what I needed at that time in my life.
Yeah. And then of course you started up your YouTube channel around that time, 2018 or so. So what inspired like the YouTube channel to be
So I had to submit a video to apply to Grammy Camp, which is a camp out in Los Angeles that it's like 2,000 teen musicians apply, only 80 get in. They only selected three bass players, and I was one of the three. And it's a bunch of these industry professionals really teaching these young kids about the music industry and how you're going to make a living in the music industry. And it's not all just sunshine and rainbows. And there's a lot of like business that goes on behind it. And so I applied to this camp, and you had to submit two videos of you playing your instrument. And so that's really the reason why I started my YouTube channel, is because I had to post those videos on there. And I did a cover of Zombie where I played every instrument, including drums, which was a horrible idea. I'm not a drummer.
yeah.
And I did Cult of Personality on
Yeah.
bass. And
Yeah,
I
I get
think I also did YYZ, but I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah, it did actually.
Yeah. I think it was three videos.
Yeah, and I
And
know
so,
you. I loved like the Maiden covers you did. I think you did Power Slave, and I know you did a live cover of the Trooper where you're singing and playing
yes.
bass. I thought that was awesome.
Yes, and that Power Slave video was my audition for the next year at Grammy Camp, which I got in. I got a full scholarship, and I didn't go just because getting to Los Angeles and hotels are
Pretty
expensive.
expensive, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Because like Vegas is not Vegas, Los Angeles is like expensive. What do you expect? It's LA.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then tell me about making like your first single, which came out in 2019. It should have been me. Like, where did that idea come to be, and what's that song about?
So I wrote that song when I was 14 years old. It was the first song I ever wrote. Um, Basically there was a local band, also young musicians, and they were kind of like the stars of the town of the kid bands. They were actually getting booked where they may make like $50 each a night every weekend. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're hot shit. And they were looking for a bass player. And I auditioned. They were like, oh my gosh, you're our best option. You're so gonna be in our band. We just have to get through the rest of these auditions, like as a formality, whatever. They led me on for about 3 months, saying like, yep, it's gonna be you, it's gonna be you, it's gonna be you. And then I find out on social media that it's not me. And so I go home crying because I was like 14. I was crying. Okay. And I sat down and I wrote the song It Should Have Been Me, which now I'm really glad it wasn't me because they are no longer in a band and they're all,
Karma sucks.
yeah, they're all like not in bands, not doing music in college to be teachers or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm still doing it.
Yeah, and I love like the music video as well. It's sort of like teaches like the lesson of like just don't give up on your dreams, just do what you do and fuck what
Yeah.
anybody says.
Yeah. And the music video, that's really cool because the storyline that goes with it, with that young girl playing little Abby Kay, that is literally exactly what happened. You walk in, you run up those steps, and what's really cool is that was filmed in my house where all of that happened. Those steps that she's running up are the same stairs that I ran up, went to the same bedroom, sat down, and cried and wrote that song.
No,
So that one is
that's
very, very
amazing.
special. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess the next single is Rock the Rock. Like what's the message behind that?
So Rock the Rock is an angry song. Basically, this huge platform came out with the top rock songs of the decade. And there were like 100 songs. And the first rock song came in at like number 50. The first 50 of the top rock songs of the decade were like pop songs and indie folk songs and not rock and roll. Like Ozzy had songs, Tool had songs, and they were like listed after 50, after like Imagine Dragons and like Train. And I'm like, okay, cool. They're maybe like, maybe considered indie rock in some way, but what happened to real rock and roll? And so that also made me mad. And I wrote Rock the Rock. You say I can't walk the walk. You say I can't talk the talk. Here I come to rock the rock, basically.
Yeah. And I know also that same time you did like a little like live like record album or something. Tell me about like that. Where is that
Yes.
recorded at?
So that was recorded at my home studio in Charlotte before I moved. We did that over COVID, um, just because I was very big into playing shows. In that time in my career, when I first started releasing music, I was playing in Baltimore. I was playing all over the
Nice.
Carolinas. I had shows booked in New York and New Jersey, and everything was canceled. I was devastated, and I was like, okay, we're still gonna have to make this work. I was a very determined teenager and a very business smart teenager. So we decided to do this live stream, which we sold tickets for like $5 and you got the link to go. And it was fully produced in a studio. It was audio straight from the board, three professional cameras. And from that, we took four songs of the professional audio and we turned them into a live EP of
Yeah.
some of like my favorite cover songs from my childhood.
Yeah. Yeah. And I loved that, especially like like I'm not familiar with that place at all because I've been to Charlotte a couple times. I'm actually gonna be there in November for Iron
Oh
Maiden.
yeah.
And so yeah, I like Charlotte that or North Carolina in general. That's great. Like
Yeah.
I've only been to like Greensboro, Charlotte, and Asheville, like all great places.
Yeah. Those are some great places. I love the Carolinas. Um, I'm very, very grateful to live in Nashville, but sometimes I do
Yeah.
like miss the scenery of North Carolina.
I mean, Nashville's wrong. Nashville's great too. I'm actually going to be there in October for a show. Like, I don't know if you ever been to Marathon Music Works.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, I'm actually going to see like Hatebreed, Carcass, Crypta, and Harm's Way there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
that's like one of my. I've never been there. I've only been to like I don't know if you ever played this tiny place called The End.
I have.
Yeah, I've been there a couple times. I saw like my friends in Carnifex play and like at the Acacia Strain. It's like really small and like all those shows like sold out really fast and it was like time like really packed in and stuff. And me
Yeah.
being like claustrophobic, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah. No, I love the small dingy music videos. Those always have like the best energy, especially when it's like a smaller capacity venue, so you have the same amount of people in a smaller space, and just from the stage it looks like it's sold out and packed, and the energy is just so unique and different. And I love it.
Yeah, and in Nashville, I don't know if you've ever been to Bridgestone Arena because that's also where I saw Iron Maiden in 2019.
I have not been to Bridgestone, which is so embarrassing. I've lived here 3 years. I pass it every day on my way downtown. Never been.
Wow. Yeah, I've only been there once, so it just depends on the show. I'd love to go back. I kind of like arena shows, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
then kind of like going back into your songs. I know like the next song I want to talk about is I guess you did a Christmas song called "A Baby Please Come Home." Tell me about that.
So I started working with a PR firm, maybe 2020, around that time, um, to get the release of like Rock the Rock and I Thought That I Loved You. They helped with press releases and sending them out to radio stations. And they called me and said, "Hey, we're gonna put together a Christmas album. We want to feature one Christmas song from all of our artists." And I was like, "Okay, when do you need it by? Like November?" They were like, "No, we need it in August." I'm like, "Okay." So in July, we were recording this Christmas song. It was the most bizarre thing, like 94 degrees outside, recording the snow's coming
It
down.
just sounds that sounds even weird just thinking of imagining that.
Yeah, it was really weird. And we did like a kind of like a playthrough music video of it. That was also filmed in August. We were all wearing Santa hats in the middle of summer. It was so weird. But it was really actually cool to see all of the artists that they work with, and we all came together. We didn't know each other before, and now we're all on an album together. It was a really cool experience, and now during the holidays, people have an Abby K song to listen to.
Yeah, that's like one of the only Christmas music that matters besides like August Burns Red or even King Diamond's like
Yeah,
no Christmas for Christmas. That's like the
yeah,
only
keep
Christmas
it
music
rock and
that
roll.
matters.
Yeah.
And next up is going into 2021. Pay attention. Tell me about that.
So I wrote Pay Attention when I turned 18, and it was my like rebellious, finally free kind of song. I was signed to a management deal in my childhood, which was not really a great experience. I was very excited when it ended, and I turned 18, the management deal ended, graduated high school, all in the same like 3, 4 months. So Pay Attention was really just my rebellious, angsty teen, "You can't control me, I am an adult now" song. But I love it. I think it's probably my favorite song I've ever done. The music video was expensive as hell,
Oh,
but it's
wow.
probably my favorite music video ever.
Yeah, can't just make things half-assed.
Yeah. Yep.
And then
Had to go
next up,
all out, get the celebrity in there. Yep, it was a lot of fun.
because of you.
Yes, I wrote Because of You. Okay, one of my idols, one of the people that I look up to in the music industry, posted something of like, I think it was Billie Eilish or someone, which nowadays I love Billie Eilish. I kind of like want to model my music after her, and I love that. But at the time, I was very like rock and roll, hard rock, heavy metal. And she said something like, "Billie Eilish is the future of rock and roll." And I was like, "What? Huh?" I love Billie Eilish nowadays, but I don't think she's the future of rock and roll. And it made me mad. And so I all of my songs when I was younger came from me being mad at someone. And I wrote basically, because of you, we won't make it through to the end to get our sweet revenge. I don't know, man. I got so mad. And now like I still love this girl. I still look up to her so much. Um it was just like that one post that she made. Billie Eilish is the future of rock and roll.
Yeah,
Sat down and wrote a song about how
yeah,
I didn't like that.
yeah, and then no Abby K like hold my beer.
Yeah.
And then next up is Happier with Me, which I believe is like a little piano kind of thing. Tell me about that because it sounds like different compared to like some of the other single that you released before then up to
Yeah.
this point.
So Happier with Me, I actually haven't put out on streaming platforms yet. I just did a little video of that on YouTube. I wrote that song again over COVID. I think everyone during COVID was depressed. And especially because I was still living with my parents. I had just gotten my first job and then, well, never mind, we're in COVID now. And um I think everyone really struggled, especially myself. And so Happier with Me was a very raw, stripped down emotional ballad that I wrote on the piano. And all of my songs I start out on guitar. I never really write songs on piano or bass. And one day it was just during COVID, I was really upset. My parents were like at the grocery store or something, or they were somewhere. Grocery stores were closed. I don't know where they were. And so I just sat down at the piano home alone, and that's literally just what came out. I took a video, I put it on YouTube, and it's a very special song, very emotional, and I do plan on putting that out on streaming platforms. I would like to make it a little bit more me nowadays, rock it up a little bit, but still keep the emotional voice in it too.
Yeah, yeah, I know like the during that whole time with the pandemic, I know it kind of like fucked up the whole like music industry and
Yes.
everything, and a lot of bands try to like incorporate some of that sort of like feeling of that in the music. So I guessing for you in particular, did like the pandemic at all sort of like influence like some of your songwriting in a way, or do you try to like keep the thought of that sort of like completely separate?
I think it did for sure in the way that I was stuck at home and bored, and I have a ukulele, I have a dulcimer, I have a piano, I have drums, I have all of these different instruments that normally I would kind of just leave alone and do my thing on my guitar and bass. And it taught me a lot about experimenting, and especially when I was having no experiences to write music on, using my brain to think of like, I would take like a TV character and say, okay, if I was going through what that TV show's happening right now, what would I write? If I was that girl writing a song, what would it sound like? That's how I wrote a lot of songs in that period.
And I guess the next single, 99 Degrees Celsius, I love that. That's probably like my favorite single that you released out of all like the singles. It has a bit of like a heavier kind of vibe behind it. So what was the whole like inspiration behind 99 Degrees Celsius?
So 99 degrees Celsius is about something that I struggle with all the time. I think it's just the way that I'm built and my personality. I will have a million and one things happen to me and I'll be silent and I won't like things that make me mad. I won't tell them off. I won't respond. I won't react. I'll be chill. But on the inside, I am boiling up and up and up. And then something as simple as, ah, my pencil fell off the table could happen. And I'll reach my boiling point and explode. And it all comes out. And everyone's like, why are you so upset that your pencil rolled off the table? And I'm like, it's all of these things that led to this. And so 99 degrees Celsius is 1 degree below the boiling point, and the song is about being on the verge of boiling over.
Yeah, and I love that. And then I know like the next song, Rockstar, that definitely is kind of like the complete opposite. It almost has like a pop punk kind of vibe. And it kind of reminds you a little
Yeah.
bit of like Blink 182 or meets Paramore a bit. So tell me about like that song.
So Rockstar was one of my over COVID experimental songs. I I'm a Disney Channel kid. I grew up watching Disney
Me
all day, every
too.
day. Good Luck Charlie, Phineas and Ferb,
Wow.
Sweet Life of Zach and Cody.
That
Like,
was one of my favorite shows. Amy, I could
yeah.
quote that every day.
Yeah.
That and That's So Raven and Corey in the House.
Yep. And so I literally sat down and said, okay, if I was gonna write a song to be pitched to Disney Channel, what would it be? And Rockstar came out, and obviously I'm not gonna be able to pitch a song to Disney, and they're not gonna pick it up because at that point I was a nobody in the Carolinas, 17 years old in my bedroom in my parents' house. So I took it for myself and I was like, oh, I like this. I'm gonna release it myself.
Oh, nice. I love how like every song is like a different vibe. Like of course, 99 degrees Celsius is different from like Rockstar. It is different
Yeah.
from Happier with Me. Yeah, so I'm guessing like every song that you made is sort of like encapsulates sort of like a different vibe or emotion that you're feeling with at that time.
Yeah, I think also in my early years, I've definitely not been afraid to experiment with different sounds and different styles. Obviously, I grew up with a hard rock and heavy metal background, but even some of my newer stuff, I'm kind of getting away from that and just figuring out the kind of music that I do want to make. I haven't been locked into a genre this whole time that I've been releasing music because I've loved every song that I've released, but I haven't found the exact sound that I want for the rest of my life, which I think is okay because I'm only 21 years old. And so there's been a lot of like differences in 99 degrees Celsius is like a hard hitting rock song, and Rockstar sounds like it could be from Hannah Montana.
Yeah, that's one thing I like about your music. Like you have like the catchy vocals, like you have the sick bass parts and like everything. And obviously you're being interviewed by RichardMetalFan. I've interviewed like my fair share of like death metal bands and black metal
Yeah.
bands. So I'm pretty sure like your heaviest song to like the pop to the pop to like the your softest more popular song to like the metal crowd is like Cher, but then like your poppiest songs like the pop artist is like Emperor. So.
Yeah.
And then I guess the next song to talk about is Better Off. Like, tell me about like that song.
Better Off was actually the first song that I recorded in Nashville. Um Before I moved, we were in between studios because I was out of my management contract, which was tied to that studio. And I didn't know, like, should I just learn how to record my own stuff after I've had this really high quality product? And we weren't really sold on that idea. And we were like, you know what? We've been wanting to go check out Nashville. Why don't we go and record some songs in Nashville?
Yeah,
And so we recorded Better Off with Troy Laketta, the drummer of Tesla, Jeff Kersey, the audio engineer for Kenny Chesney, and Brian Gamboa, who just sang on Mick Mars's solo record. And it was the most amazing experience ever. That trip is what sold me on moving to Nashville, which I did later that year.
yeah,
And it was awesome. It was just amazing.
yeah. And then I guess that you're, I guess that This Is War, which I loved. I thought it definitely has that kind of catchiness to it. So tell me about like that song.
So This Is War. Honestly, I wrote that one is something my ex said to my mother.
Damn.
He said, "Oh, you want to fight? Well, I'll bring a mother effing war." To my mother. He said that to my mother.
Damn. Oh
And
shit.
so a year and a half later, I'm like,
Hands are
wait,
catching.
yeah, a year and a half later, I was like, I remembered that. And I was like, hey, where's this war? Where's this war at?
Yeah.
And so I wrote a song, This Is War. And the chorus is, you said you'd start a war, so what are you waiting for? I'm guessing you backed out when you realized I won't back down. And I don't like to write songs about like my exes. I don't talk about my love life ever online, but that one I will always say because it makes him look pathetic that he said to my mother,
I
"Oh,
bet
you want
he's
to
like,
start or
bullshit.
you want to fight? Well, I'll bring a mother effing war." It's my sweet mother.
And now he's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then your new single that just came out today, My Own Little Hell. I thought was a pretty good single. I was like listening to it in just preparation
Yeah.
for this interview. So what was the whole like thought process making that song?
So, My Own Little Hell is one of the songs that I wrote like crying in my bedroom. It's a very kind of the same vibe as Happier with Me, very raw and emotional. More of a ballad feel, but also very, very powerful. I think the words speak volumes. Um, that was another one, just depressed over COVID, stuck in my own little hell, which is referring to like stuck in your mind and your own thoughts, and your head is spinning. You can't stop your thoughts. So a little bit of a dark song, but something very real and very like powerful that I hope a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah. Yeah, and then talking about like your lyrics, because I know like each of your songs that you release have like different like lyrical meanings, different topics and stuff. So when it comes to
Yeah.
like making lyrics, do you have to like put yourself in like a certain mind frame in order to come up with lyrics, or just they just have to like come like naturally or inorganically?
I used to force myself to write a song, and I don't anymore because it was so not fun. It wasn't like I love music. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I could never not do music. I love writing songs. And so when I would make myself sit down and write a song every day, I was dreading it and my songs weren't good. And so I have always had the rule that I don't have to write a song until something happens or I get a feeling or a thought and I'm like, ooh, I want to go write a song right now. And so I have a total of about 150 songs that I've written. And sometimes I'll write 4 songs in a week, and then sometimes I won't write a song for months. And like it bothers me a little bit. I haven't written a song for a really long time. And the business part of me is like, what happens? Like, what's my I have these songs left that I want to release. What's going to happen after that? Protect your future. You need to be writing songs. But at the same time, if I force myself to write a song right now, it's not going to be good. And I just have to wait until I have that moment that, oh, I'm going to write a song about this.
Right. And then talking about like your bass playing, because I know you've heard your fair share of bass player jokes and memes and all that stuff, but I feel like you don't gravitate towards like flashy bass playing, but instead I feel like you find ways to link what the guitars are doing with the melody, what the drums are doing with the rhythm. So for you, what is like your approach to like tracking like bass?
I, in the studio, will always do what's best for the song. Although I am myself, I'm the solo artist. It's me. It's all about me. It's my songs. Um, and I'm the bass player. I will not do what's not best for the song, even though I kind of want to show off and I want it to be very bass heavy and all these like fills and stuff. Sometimes it doesn't make sense for the song. Now, live, I will go ham. I will make sure everybody in the audience knows that I know how to play a freaking bass. And I know how to do all the frilly stuff, all the fancy show off bass lines. Live, I'll go crazy. But in the studio, I'm more about just, I mean, honestly, the bass role is to just lock in with the drums and keep a solid groove going. And the guitar dilly dallies all over that.
Yeah.
And so in the studio, I try to stay very true to that. But live, definitely, I like to show off a little bit.
Really. And in terms of like singing and also playing bass, do like both of those sort of like reflect like different sides of you creatively?
I think so. I think I'm a much more trained bass player. And I mean, like I said, I never planned on singing ever. And I don't have a lot of vocal training. I mean, I don't have a lot of bass training. I actually didn't start taking bass lessons until 6 months ago. I've been a professional bass player for years. It's been my entire living for 3 years. I've never taken a bass lesson until a couple months ago. I've done like some music theory lessons, and with that, I've had a lot of training, and so I know what I'm doing. With singing, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't. I mean, I listen to what's on the radio, I listen to singers there. I grew up in church, so I understand how harmony works. And I just kind of wing it and see what sticks.
Yeah, and I know like I said, a lot of people want to make fun of the bass players, but all I gotta say is Lemmy, Peter Steele, Tom Araya, yeah, Glenn Benton. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then talking about like your live performance, because I haven't seen you all live, and I'm hoping that you come to like somewhere in Georgia or in Atlanta. But in
Yeah.
terms of like playing live, like is there like a similar mind frame to like playing live as opposed to like recording? Is there like any differences or similarities between the two?
A lot of differences. If you see me in the studio, I have like if I'm tracking a bass line, I have my eyes closed. I am not moving at all. I'm just focused on being exact on the dot. And live, yes, the music is a big part of it, but I'm known for my live show and my performing. And luckily, I have enough practice with both that I can do a really good job playing bass while I put on a huge performance. And so the bass, like, it doesn't take the back seat. It's not like it's less good. It's just I am much more focused on entertaining and having a good time when I'm playing live. Whereas in the studio, it's like, don't even breathe right near me right now. I'm focusing.
And in terms, and of course, like also, and so to sort of like wrap things up, what's next for Abby K? K in terms of like more new music? Is there any like an albums in the works or any more shows coming up?
Honestly, I don't know that I'm gonna be doing an album anytime soon. I've always said that I was gonna do an album, and instead I've put out 19 singles. Just because, like I said, I am trying to still find my sound. And so if you listen to It Should Have Been Me, This Is War, Rockstar, and My Own Little Hell, they sound like completely different artists. And so it makes no sense for me to put them in an album together. And I still kind of feel like I'm in that where I'm experimenting and finding who I'm gonna be for the rest of my life. And so I think I'm gonna stick with singles until I really, really figure myself out. Um, and as for touring, I love touring. It's my favorite thing. I've played in 32 states around the US. That is my end goal is to just tour the world. But right now it's very, very expensive. And unfortunately, I don't have the numbers. I can't bring 100 people to a venue. And so I can't afford to hire a band. But I am looking at ways that I can cut down on costs. Um, I know backing tracks are very, very controversial in the rock and metal world, and I would never ever use them for myself. Never, ever, ever. But if I only have to bring two musicians instead of three musicians, it cuts down on a lot of expenses there. So I've been working on looking at things like that because I miss touring and I want to get back out there yesterday. I want to go. I want to go. My bags are packed. I'm ready.
Nice. Nice. And also want to talk about like your live setting in terms of like your gear rundown. I'm always curious like what kind of basses that you play in terms of like strings, pedals, amps, and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I've been experimenting with bass brands recently. My whole life I've played Schecter and I always play a five string. Uh but I've just been like experimenting and seeing what's out there. I have been playing a Lakeland recently and also a Michael Kelly I just bought. Um and I've just been like I don't know, like I'm not tied down to any certain brand, but I play 5 to 6 nights a week, about 30 to 40 hours a week on Broadway here in Nashville. I play my Lakeland and my Michael Kelly most. Those are the ones that I love. And for strings, I use the Ernie Ball super long, extra slinky 45 to 130s. For amps, I'm endorsed by Laney Amplification. I use their huge Digbeth cabinet rig. It's amazing. Um, but it's a bitch to carry around because it's so huge. And for straps, I just get whatever Guitar Center has that looks pretty.
Nice. So before we go, I just want to thank you for this interview. It's great to have you on my show. It's just any final words you want to say to the viewers that are watching this to close us out?
Support your local musicians, support your independent artists. Um, it's a tough world out here, especially like around releases. It's hard because you're putting your whole entire heart and soul into a song, and then when you get like 1,000 plays, it's hard. So support your local artists when they release music, share it to your stories, tag them in it, listen to it or not, but share it and like tell them that you appreciate it and everything. It's really nice to hear.
Awesome. So everybody, Abby K, see you next time.